welcome to episode 5 of Trek Retrek here on Geek the F Out. I'm your captain, Johnny. You should know this by now. And Ensign Kayla is with me. Yes.
And I'm your ensign, Kayla. Got this. Practice makes perfect.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Can't complain.
Good. It's been like a week since I've seen you, right?
Yes. It's been a whole week. I did my makeup exactly the same way.
It looks identical. I can't believe it.
Yeah. It's hard to accomplish, but I have years of practice to make it look exactly the same. How are you?
I'm doing spectacular.
Beautiful. Shall we talk about some Star Trek?
We shall. I need to bring up my resource. I closed it. No, I didn't close it.
Oh,
no. This week, we're talking about The Enemy Within, episode 5 of Star Trek, the original series. TVGuide.com says a transporter malfunction results in 2 separate Captain Kirks. One, meek and indecisive. The other, violent and animalistic. Meanwhile, a landing party is stranded on a frozen planet.
Yep. That's it. That's all we got.
That's it.
Great show.
See you next
week. Where I won't have the same makeup.
So what do you think of this one?
I liked it. Once again, it was like a very similar trope to what we've already seen and felt very similar to last week's.
That's going to be a trend through this episode, folks.
Yeah, it's interesting that I was just thinking about this now. The title, The Enemy Within, I felt like that might have been better for last week. Like
maybe I
it
could
works,
see how it could apply.
Yeah, like it works. I guess that's more of your like drunk selves than your like the antithesis of yourself. But still, it applies to both. Let's just say that. I feel like it just applies better than the naked time.
Yeah. One of the things I read about this episode on Memory Alpha was apparently there was a line in the script where Dr. McCoy was supposed to say something to the effect of, we all have to learn to fight the enemy within. So it might have been one of those things. It was a line that got cut, but the episode had already been named.
Uh-huh. I mean, Spock does say something similar to Kirk where he's like, you need those qualities to be captain.
Yeah.
Right? Am I remembering that correctly?
That was a theme of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Like those are still qualities that you have, but like, you just don't let them get to that extent, essentially. I guess.
Yeah, the two sides together work in tandem and like keep each other in check.
Thank you for saying it better than I can.
At least from what this episode says, it is an interesting deconstruction of the human psyche.
For sure. But yeah, I thought it was okay. Yeah, I think
good.
having
Now you thought it was okay.
Yeah. It just like didn't really stick out to me. Like there are things that stood out to me, but I don't know. Just like I feel like having a very similar theme once again, especially watching this episode and the previous episode at the same time, I just like kind of bunched everything in again for me.
Yeah, that's a thread that I want to explore. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know, what did you think?
It was fine. Like I watched it twice. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was watchable both times.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, like we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Our notes for this episode are about half as much as we had for the naked time.
Yeah.
It is odd because this is an iconic episode of the original series, the
Hmm.
same way as the Naked Time. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're looking at those two episodes, Naked Time is better.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
One
Um,
hundred percent.
so it's interesting because this is 5 episodes that we've watched now,
Mm-hmm.
and we have seen in more than half of them people taking over the ship.
Yep.
Uh, Two of them had imposters because we had the
Yep.
salt vampire, and now we have the not really an imposter, but they
It's
framed
like
it
a
that way that it was an
it's like a
imposter.
clone
Yeah,
essentially.
he was split into two halves. They're both
Yeah.
Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
They're both equally Captain Kirk, but they're both fifty
Yeah.
percent of Kirk. Um,
100% physically, 50% mentally.
yeah, there is one new trope that will stand the test of time in
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek that was introduced in this episode, and that is transporter accidents.
Yes.
This is the first transporter accident, and it's
Yeah.
not the last.
I didn't think so, mostly because that did happen in the Chris Pine movies.
Yeah,
um, which, yeah, it took me until the second episode to realize that it was from the ore, even though, like, they said that, like, Scotty said that,
yeah,
but for some reason it didn't register.
yeah,
um, which they were like, real quick, but they kept getting on him for like getting hurt, and then they're like, "Oh, you're covered in stuff. You better like go clean up." Like, just like
yeah,
complete accidents that like he had zero control over. That like he kept getting in trouble for. I'm like, uh, go easy on him. Like what?
yeah. Because McCoy was like, "I have no sympathy for clumsiness" or something like
Yeah,
that, and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. And I'm
"It
like,
happened to
because you
anyone."
can control that. Like, what the heck? So weird. Anyways, shall we get
Uh,
into it? Into the
yeah.
meat?
The
Go
start
ahead.
date for this episode is 1672.1. So this episode took place before the Naked Time, based on the star
Okay.
date, because Naked
Okay.
Time was 1704.4. So it's another of those
Uh-huh.
things that this was filmed before the Naked Time. Um,
Got it.
this is, if I remember correctly, does he use the Vulcan nerve pinch in this episode, or was
I
that?
was about to ask you. Once
I
again,
think
these
I
two episodes really mesh together.
Yes,
Um,
I have that in my facts. It was the first time he used the Vulcan nerve pinch, so
like
it
recorded.
was filmed for this episode before they did it in the Naked Time, but Naked Time aired first.
Cause
Um,
yeah, he did it to Guyliner Kirk.
yeah,
Yes. Also, that's a thing. Totally wearing
Guyliner
guyliner.
Kirk. Yeah, it
Or as we
absolutely
can
was.
just say now, eyeliner, because it doesn't matter who you are, you can wear makeup. Spoiler
Yeah,
alert. Um, but yeah, it was just funny because especially back then, like I mean, Spock is pretty much in drag. Like he definitely has like the glue, like how you put the glue down and then you pack on the powder and everything and then to make the eyebrows a totally different shape. Like he's
yeah.
essentially in a type of like a very basic form of drag makeup. Um but yeah, so we're just gonna call him Guyliner Kirk though. For all intents and
I
purposes.
I have really little notes for this episode. The only other things I have is uh, Shatner is loving hamming it up as Evil Kirk, as eyeliner Kirk,
Yes.
and he's great at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. A little too good, honestly. It was kind of scary at some points. I mean, scary for other reasons too, obviously. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he crushed it, I would say.
The only other things I have are I have no shuttlecraft question mark, which I read on Memory Alpha that they hadn't finalized if they were going to do anything with, like they hadn't decided on the ship having a hangar and having shuttlecraft when they wrote and filmed this episode. So,
Sorry, shuttlecraft. My mind is blanking.
like a separate, smaller vehicle that could go
Oh,
down to the planet, pick them up, and bring them back. Didn't exist in the world of Star Trek yet when this episode
yes.
was written.
Yes.
They come
That's what I
into play
figured that
later.
was. Okay.
Spoilers. Sorry.
I I honestly did not even think of that as an option,
I,
and I've seen a lot of sci-fi stuff that has that.
and I think they used shuttles in the Pine movies. I'm sure there was a shuttlecraft or two in those.
Probably. I haven't even watched those in a long time.
Um, and then the other thing that is another thing that's kind of a common thread.
Mhm.
So I thought it was interesting in this episode that they were stuck on a planet freezing because
Yeah.
last episode, Joe, the one who died, was like, we wouldn't need life support to keep them from freezing to death if we were supposed to be in space.
I know. And also, like, they were wearing nothing. They would have frozen way sooner than that.
They could have probably been a little more conservative with the temperature that they said it was getting down
Yeah.
to, because
What was it? 120
like,
below?
yeah, something like that. I'm like, guys, the
What?
negative 40 below it would have been enough. Negative 30 would have been enough. Like,
Yeah.
because
What?
they're just in their uniforms. They don't have like winter gear. They
Yeah.
were expecting to be beamed up before it got that cold.
And are they saying below 0 Fahrenheit? Because that's even colder. Or
That's a
Celsius.
good question. They
Either way,
did
it's really
not,
fucking cold.
because a lot of Star Trek uses the metric system.
Okay.
Um, like they talk about kilometers. I
Mhm.
don't know if they're
To be more
using, and
scientific.
they use Kelvin as
Mhm.
uh,
Temperature.
the temperature. I don't know if they specified Fahrenheit or Celsius in this. If they did, I didn't catch it, and I didn't think about it.
Yeah, I think they just said below 0. They didn't say below freezing because that would obviously be either
Yeah,
way. Um Yeah. The first note I have is LOL the dog in the lion horn costume. LOL with the antenna.
yeah.
Like
I had a
clearly
feeling
a
you were gonna have a
dog
comment about the
in
dog.
like a lion costume with a horn, which I didn't even see the antenna that it had for a while. And then the like hairless tail that they added on to that was clearly just flopping around and like not even they weren't even trying to make it move or anything. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, okay.
And I'm pretty sure the unconscious dog that they put on the transporter pad with it was like a stuffed animal.
Oh, probably, yeah.
I don't think it was another dog. I think it was
No.
just a stuffed animal, a plush
Yeah. It's hard
with the
enough just to
costume on.
get yeah, it's hard enough just to get one dog actor. To
Yeah.
get two, especially in like a tiny space to like work and be like the same breed and everything would be a lot. Although granted, I think they usually use multiple of the same breed anyways, but I don't know if that's what they did back then. Um, but yeah, it was funny though at one point when they were just carrying around the dog throughout like
Yeah.
random scenes and I'm just like, okay, does this dog need like I'm not complaining. I'm happy the dog is there. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, does this dog need to be here? um
They needed to get their money's worth out of that costume that they made for the
yeah,
dog and
I
have it on
mean
screen as much as possible.
those animal actors are not cheap. That is for sure. um the second note I have is in all caps, more doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
can we get a different trope maybe?
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about the episodes that we watched, and I wonder if they would play better if we watched them in production order,
Yeah,
that these similar tropes would be more spread out.
maybe.
Um, because we had an imposter in the first episode. In the second episode, we
Yes.
had psychic being trying to take over the ship. In the third episode, we had
Yes.
psychic beings trying to take over the ship. In the
Yes.
fourth episode, we had uh
Drunk
alcohol
infestation.
virus,
Yeah.
and one of the crewmen took over the ship.
Yep.
And in this episode, we have an evil Captain Kirk, Eyeliner Kirk, trying to take over the
Yep.
ship.
Yep.
I think the only person who hasn't tried to take over the ship so far was the Salt Vampire.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they were mostly just going for salt, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah,
But to their
that's
credit,
true.
they are, even though they're using similar tropes, they are approaching each of them in
Differently.
different ways. But I think they
Yes.
might play out better if they weren't back to back to back to back to back.
Totally. Totally. I 100% agree with that. Um I thought it was weird Kirk narrating it at some point at the beginning. I don't know if he narrated again, but I remember him narrating it at the beginning.
I'm trying to think if he said Captain's Log or not. That's what, anytime there's narration, even if he doesn't say Captain's Log, I think the
Uh-huh.
implication is that it's his Captain's Log.
I think he didn't say captain's log, and maybe that's what like threw me off or something like that. Or it just
Yeah.
sounded different and I was like, "Oh, that's different." And then I put LOL another drunk episode cuz like, you know, like how some of the other like how Joe was like, angry and violent
Mm-hmm.
in his drunken state. Um Another high-waisted shirtless Kirk.
Yeah.
My next note. And then, did they give him eyeliner? Which honestly, it was just enough to like make him look different, but like we were talking about, he did such a good job acting that way that like you could definitely tell who was who even without it, but it's just a nice little touch, a little spice, a little something something
Mm-hmm.
added up. My next note is I said, can we not with the rape plot line? Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't really need to talk about that. Hated that. I think if you've watched our other stuff, you don't need it. You don't need to have that happening. Obviously, nothing actually happened, but like the fact that they were like implying that was going to happen and like the struggle and everything, I was just like, all right, I'm over this.
I don't know that I'm qualified to speak on it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I know what I've read online from people who have gone through stuff like that. I
Mhm.
think the one potential bright side of that plot line is that
Mhm.
Janice reported it, and the people she
Mhm.
reported it to took her seriously.
Yeah. Especially cuz she was reporting it to Kirk. And he's like, uh, I mean, clearly it wasn't him,
Yeah,
but like at the same time like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people would just be like, that wasn't me. That like couldn't have been me. Like even though he knew it wasn't him, I don't know. I feel like the default is just to like deny, deny, deny.
yeah.
Or just like you're crazy. Like that didn't happen. Like or victim blame or whatever. But yeah, no. Yeah, it's just a trope that I hope completely dies. Like as like a and when I say that I mean like as like a plot device essentially.
Yeah,
Like we don't need that. Like
yeah,
it is unnecessary and especially like actually like showing it or anything like that like Game of Thrones did with a lot of stuff, which I loved Thrones, but yeah, when they would use it as a plot device, especially when it wasn't even in the books and they added it into the show and I was just like
oh.
absolutely not. Yeah. Um but yeah, so anyways, moving on. uh but the fight that they did have was very awkward. Like some points were just like it looked like a normal fight and other points were just like I don't know if it was just like over choreographed or something.
It may have been because they needed to keep Kirk's body double's face out of the shot, so you couldn't tell that it wasn't Shatner fighting
mm,
himself, that it was someone else that kind of looks like Shatner from behind.
I'm not talking about that fight
Oh,
with him and Janice.
you're talking about the fight with him and Janice.
Struggle. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it looked like choreographed. Yeah,
gotcha. You said
yeah.
moving on, so I thought we were talking about
No,
something
no,
else
no.
entirely.
I was. I know I said moving on, but that was my next note because I just thought it was awkward. Actually, moving on though, we have the green wraparound again.
Yeah, get used to it. I think it's been in. I don't. I'm sure someone has already done the math of how much he wears the green wraparound versus the command like gold shirt.
I'm sure there's like a
Maybe we should
whole
maybe we
Wikipedia
should change our
page.
color scheme to that green rather than the
Yeah.
gold.
I mean, green is in the Geek the F Out logo. It's a different green though.
Yeah,
I like all the greens. Also, like my favorite color is green, and
mine's purple and
so
green. I
that
like green too. Um, there's not many colors I don't like.
mm, I don't like orange. Fun fact.
Interesting.
But I wear a lot of orange eye makeup because I have blue eyes, so it makes my eyes stick out because they are opposite colors. But like I don't think I have much orange stuff except for Giants stuff. Sports. Um the next note I have is he just stumbles on some makeup. Was he
I think he was still in Rand's quarters.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. I figured he probably was, but still, I was just like the fact that he's like trying to figure out, how to hide, and then he's like, "Oh, there's some makeup right here."
Yeah, I think he was still hanging out in Rand's quarters for some reason.
Yeah, and also the fact that that he was able to put it on well enough that no one noticed. Like that's hard enough to do in how do I say this? That's hard enough to do with like regular makeup, even with like stage makeup or like movie makeup. So to just like randomly pats him on and no one question it, I was just like, okay, that's not realistic.
Maybe
But
this
that's
is
my nitpick.
maybe this is super advanced space makeup that automatically shifts pigment to blend in perfectly with your surrounding skin.
So technically that's already a thing. Fun fact. So probably it just can't be multiple pigments. It shifts to like one. Anyways. Yeah, I just thought that was funny. And then my last note is take a drink every time Captain is mentioned in this episode because
Yeah.
dear God, it is said so many times, especially at the end where he's like, I'm the captain. No, I'm the captain. I'm the captain.
Yeah, they did say captain a lot in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, that's it. Like this is it's a fine episode, like we said.
Yeah.
There's just I don't think there's a lot to say about it.
No.
Yeah. So that would bring us to favorite moments and lines. I do have a couple.
Go for it.
Uh Spock's, if I seem insensitive to what you're going through, Captain, it's because I am.
Literally. Yeah, that was good. That was good.
And I had one more. No, I didn't. No, that's it.
That
Yep,
tells you everything you need to know about this episode and how we felt about it.
that is it.
I feel like we keep saying it like it was a bad episode, but it really was not
Yeah,
that bad.
No,
You
it
know,
wasn't
it's
bad. I
just
watched it twice and it was fine both times. It wasn't
yeah.
like which one was it? Was it uh
I think it was Charlie
Charlie
X.
X or Where No
Yeah.
Man Has Gone Before, and that we were like
Oh no, it was Where No Man Has Gone Before.
it was a harder episode to
Yeah.
watch a second time in succession versus
Yep.
like the Man Trap.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, it really was not that bad. The dog stood out to me because obviously. Um, and the eyeliner. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't. I don't really
Yeah,
have
that's
any
it.
other lines. There wasn't even that.
So
There was only a few. That's what they said too, and I was really trying to listen for them every time, and I'm just like, they're giving me nothing,
I mean,
nothing here.
I think the ones you got from this episode are really good.
Yeah.
There just wasn't many of them. So,
Hmm.
who do you want to start? Do you want to start or should I start?
Um, I'll start this time because you started last time, and it doesn't matter the order. Last time it mattered the order. All right. That's what they said. That's nippy.
Can I give you a hand, sir?
It might profit you to let Dr. McCoy give you the once over.
I think we better bind them.
Cold, penetrating.
I'll be glad when this is over.
That is not something you want them to say. But they can say that in their heads. That's it.
That's it. So that will bring us to episode trivia for Memory Alpha. I do have some. It
Ooh.
is some interesting trivia. This is, and we talked about this part already. It was the first episode to be produced to show the Vulcan nerve pinch. It's also the first time McCoy says he's dead, Jim. He says it about the dog, which
Is
is one
that
of,
become a line?
yeah, that's one of Bones' catchphrases. He's dead, Jim.
Got it.
It also says Leonard Nimoy objected to the script's directive that Spock KO's negative Kirk on the head. So he improvised the neck pinch on the spot and demonstrated it on William Shatner for director Leo Penn. The script's
Badass.
original directive survives to this day in the James Blish adaptation of this episode in the book Star Trek VIII, as Blish only had access to the scripts and not to the finished episodes.
Interesting.
That's it. That's all. That's
That's it.
there were other facts there, but I try to stick with one
Okay.
for uh
Very apropos for this episode too.
yeah. So that will bring us then to our spoilers without context.
Memes. Should I go first this time?
Sure.
All right.
So we'll be putting Ensign Kayla's spoilers without context up on the screen for you to see and follow along at home.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we got Brandy. Not the drink, but the singer. What was the name of the brandy that he wanted?
Saurian Brandy.
Saurian?
Yeah. I believe it was Saurian Brandy.
Saurian brandy. Yeah, just first thing coming in hot saying he wants that brandy. And then we have the epic age of the eyeliner, the guyliner of the 2000s, because that was the one photo I could find that had multiple eyeliners in it, and it happened to say 2000s, and I was like, well, that's fitting. And once again, we have the Frozen Shining photo. And of course, to go with the take a drink every time captain is mentioned, look at me, I am the captain now. Classic. Classic.
All very suitable. So we'll bring up mine, and I have the yellow powder for the
Yep.
whatever they used, and then of course the Spider-Man meme pointing at
Yep.
himself. Uh, that's nail art or body paint for scratches for Kirk scratches, and then I had to do the Frozen Shining for mine
Yep.
again too because it just fits. It's three
Yep.
spoilers without context in 2 episodes that had good old Jack in there
Yeah, it
that
really
I couldn't
did.
couldn't not think about it.
Yeah. It's funny because I am looking at the photos now with the other photos on my phone. I also did the Spider-Man one, but then I think when I found the Brandy one, I decided to do that one instead, and that worked out well. So now we don't have two
Yeah,
overlapping, which we
it'd be
also
okay if we
don't
do.
consult each other.
Yeah, we
um,
we come up with these independently, and I
mhm,
don't see Kayla's until she sends them to me before we
mhm,
record, and then I
mhm.
send her mine so she knows what we're going through. But if we
Yeah.
have overlap, we have overlap, and it just
Mhm.
means that it fits the episode because
Yes.
Kayla is the meme queen. So if I match what Kayla's thinking, I'm in good
You're
shape.
doing something right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You got it.
So that'll bring us to ranking the episode.
Mhm.
Kayla, we'll start with your rank.
Why do you gotta do this to me?
That's our
um,
whole premise.
I know. I know. I'll say lieutenant.
Okay.
I could easily give it an ensign. But I'll be nice. I'll be nice. Once again, I have limited context, so I will say lieutenant because it wasn't, yeah, like we were saying, like it wasn't the worst. It was good. It was entertaining.
Hmm.
Shatner's acting was great. Um, I don't know, but then part of me also does want to give it ensign because of that plot device. Dang it. This is my Libra rising indecisiveness coming out right now, y'all. I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna do ensign. Change my
Okay.
mind. Yep.
Um, so Kayla gives the enemy within ensign.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I go back and forth on lieutenant and commander, and the only reason
Okay.
I even consider commander is because it is an iconic episode of Star Trek. Um,
Is
Again,
it?
like we were saying, it is
Yeah.
uh, the uh, the episode's not bad. Like we said, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like it's a bad episode. It's entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just suffers from being a similar story back, not necessarily back to back, but lumped in so closely with the tropes that we've seen in
Yeah.
previous episodes.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
but I don't think it's something that you need to go out of your way to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you don't watch this one, you're not really missing anything. There's not a ton. I mean, there's some character development for Kirk in the aspect of like talking about him needing his darker side uh,
Mm-hmm.
to be in command
Yeah.
of the ship. Like if he
Yeah.
didn't have that shadow side of himself, then he might not be suitable to be a starship captain.
Yeah. It's fair.
McCoy talks about it at the end where he says McCoy basically sums it up that way and talks about the two sides both influencing you
Mm-hmm.
as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It was
but
McCoy that said it. I think I said Spock earlier. Oh well.
yeah, I think it was McCoy who said something about.
Yeah.
I think they both did. Like
Okay.
Spock said something about you wouldn't be captain without him, and then
Yeah.
by the end of the episode, McCoy comes around and says, I Spock's right. Like if it wasn't for both sides of you, you're not fit to be captain of a starship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I don't think this is a must-watch episode. I don't think that character development is super important. It's an interesting
Yeah.
deconstruction of Kirk's personality.
Yeah.
If you really like Kirk, you want to watch this episode. If Kirk is your favorite character, you want to watch this episode.
Yeah.
But overall, in general, I think I'm going with Lieutenant. I don't think
Okay.
it's a necessity. And again, Ensign is a skippable episode. Watch it if you want, but you're not missing anything. Lieutenant is
Now you're
watch it
gonna
if
make
you
me
have
second
time.
guess again.
Don't change your don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll come back around to you. Lieutenant is watch it if you have time to watch it, but if you don't watch it, you're not missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Commander is a good episode that you should watch if you can,
Mm-hmm.
and Captain is an essential episode of Star Trek. Do not skip this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the thing with our rating system. We talked about, I don't want to rate each episode out of like such and such out of 10,
Yeah.
because what makes an 8-star episode better than a 7-star episode? How do you decide, well, I'm going to take time to watch this one and not that one? And
Yeah.
everybody's taste is different.
Yep.
Someone
To
might
each
think
their
this is the
own.
best episode of Star Trek ever made.
I would question their sanity. Just kidding.
But
Not yucking anyone's yums, but
yeah,
there is something
don't
very
yuck
yucky in this
yums.
episode. So
That is
yeah.
without argue that
Mm-hmm.
there are questionable themes in this episode.
Yep.
But I'm going Lieutenant. It's an
Okay.
episode that you watch it if you have time. If you don't, you're not missing anything essential.
Yeah. Fair. Fair.
Are
Fair.
you are you sticking with Ensign?
Yep. Yep. Sticking with that. That's my final answer.
Okay.
Not gonna overthink it.
So our next episode here on Trek Retrek will be episode 6, Mudd's Women. IMDb says the Enterprise picks up untrustworthy entrepreneur Harry Mudd, accompanied by 3 beautiful women who immediately put a spell on all the male crew members. I think this might be a problematic episode.
Sounds like it.
We'll find out next time.
Yeah.
I feel like our audience probably already knows.
Okay.
I don't expect people watching this show to have never seen Star Trek before. I'd be
it
interested
sounds
if
like it
you're
could or couldn't, but given what I've seen so far and that it was made in the 60s, I'm gonna lean towards probably problematic.
let us know in the I would be interested if someone is doing their first watch through of Star Trek the original series along with us. So if you are, absolutely
Or
let us
if
know in
you're
the
just
comments.
not watching at all and just watching us.
That would be interesting too. If you have never watched Star Trek and you're not watching Star Trek, but you're just watching us talk
There
about
might
it,
be some of those people,
let me
just
know.
saying.
I do that with some things. There's some shows that
Yeah.
I don't want to take. Stranger Things. I have not watched Stranger Things yet. I know.
Maybe that'll be our next show. We watch
maybe.
it because I've already seen it a bunch of times and you haven't.
Yeah. That
Ayo.
could be the next one.
There we go.
But I've watched people talk about it. Like I've spoiled myself on a lot of stuff because I've read about it and I've watched people talk about episodes of Stranger Things, but I have not watched it myself. So,
yeah.
I mean, there are people like that out there. I'm one of them. So, all right, folks. I think that does it for this episode of Trek Retrek.
Am I going?
I mean, you can.
Every time you do it, I like get taken off guard with the pause and throws me off.
We'll get it. There are only 5 episodes in.
We'll
this is only our 5th recording. 6th recording
ready,
if you count the intro.
Set.
Yes.
Peace and long life. I have to move my hand.
Live long and prosper. Bye, everybody.
Bye.